Alan Zervis and I had to go to our nation's capital, Canberra, for a press conference by the federal government. What car should we take to this place of power and privilege to create a perception of style and importance?
Well, what better way to do it than go in a 5-litre long wheelbase Jaguar XJ Autobiography. A great car, one that really has wonderful elegance and appeal to it. We were going to an electric car announcement, so perhaps the 5-litre V8 was a tad controversial, or contradictory at least, but nonetheless we were comfortable, we enjoyed it, and it was beautiful driving. And so while we are not the most environmentally sensitive car, we thought we would stop here at Lake George, have a look at the wind farm, and try and enjoy the solar power, if only to warm our spirits.
We immediately noticed the illumination on the dashboard when we started the 3.5-hour trip at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was too early in the day to actually talk about it, but later Alan gave his opinion.
As my now 11-year-old nephew would say, it had lots of Tron lighting. He's very fond of Tron lighting. And it's around the vents, the clock, the central clock, the doors. It's just a beautiful, beautiful glow and very warm and very welcoming.
The interior is wonderful. The highly polished wood panelling with an inlay strip and the flowing line of timber that continues in a sweeping curve below the front window. It was elegant without being overstated. When we test a car, we usually argue as to who can be the driver, but in this case the XJ Jaguar was made to sit in the back, with a chauffeur at the wheel. But it is hard to get staffed these days with the right amount of respect.
Now that you're in the back and, all trussed up like, Lady Godiva.
It gets worse. As we were driving, young passengers in the car beside us waved frantically, showing just how important the car made us look.
The people next door to us are waving.
Hello.
Please don't wave. I'll give them the royal wave.
Yeah.
That
there could be Beyonce in the back for all I know.
I'll have to get you to lower the screen on the right-hand side.
No, bug you. Do it yourself. That's my job gone.
Sitting in the back also helps you do some valuable research.
I've just looked up my computer, just so that we're technically correct, 5-litre V8,
yep.
375 kilowatts of power.
Yes.
And whammo, 700 newton metres of torque at 2,000 revs.
Oh, isn't that just ridiculous?
0 to 100 in 4.9 seconds. You didn't have to prove that. As I was doing that.
No, well, we're going to 110 and I want to get there as quickly as possible, so I just whispered on the accelerator.
Hey, here's the thing. The weight in kilograms. You thought it might be 2.5 tons? 1,885.
Is that right? That's not very much heavier than a Commodore.
$299,995 recommended price. Put on-roads onto that. Geez, there's got to be at least 30 grand or more.
Yeah.
But options were adaptive cruise control. I would have liked to have thought that would have been standard.
I think it's a bit stingy because, as we were saying to the Hyundai fellow this morning, that's standard on an i30 top model. And this is a top model Jaguar XJ and it doesn't have adaptive cruise control as standard. I think that's a bit rubbish.
How does it drive? When we came out from the rest stop there, you had to accelerate hard to get onto the main drag in front of other vehicles. Enough of a gap, but did this make it comfortable?
It was extremely comfortable, and I tell you what, the wine from the supercharger was very, very pretty indeed.
Yeah.
Very pretty.
You know what I loved about the power? You remember you got caught behind a guy who was in the right-hand lane doing 10 kilometres an hour below the speed limit. And so when you had an opportunity, you could just go around the inside with power and urge.
Just breathe,
which said to yourself as much as anything, I don't need to be worried by your inconsiderate activity, and this is what the car does, don't you think? It just gives you that feeling of being in control, of being in a very lovely place. I don't have to be pretentious about it, I just have to enjoy it.
Well, I think for all Jaguars XJs, but this one in particular. And it does remind me of my favourite Jag, which is the XJ Series 3 from the late 70s through to the late 80s. That there was something beautiful and majestic about it, that it just wafts along and is so regal and elegant, even if it is doing 0 to 100 in 5 seconds.
The other thing I found is in driving in the city, we were in Canberra, we were looking for a parking spot, there were traffic and congestion and indecision around you, yet I felt calm. I felt it was easy to drive without losing control of that feel for a car, but it was light, and it just meant that I felt calm and I was going to cope with the situation no matter what it was.
It did, and it felt considerate as well. The car felt considerate. It felt like you didn't mind waiting for a moment while someone reversed into a parking spot, or how some cars, they're just frantic and everything about them is frantic and you want to get there as quickly as possible. In this, I feel like I want to get there in as much time as possible.
Well, as needed.
As needed, yeah.
Long wheelbase cars can struggle to fit style into their looks.
Long wheelbase, yet it doesn't look gawky with it. The Porsche, that four-door thing.
That looked like somebody backed a 911 into a garden shed.
It looks like, yes, that a guy on the production line who was good at welding tried his hand and ended up with something that really was out of all proportion.
So, what did we learn from the press conference? The Australian federal government announced a $395,000 grant for research into electric vehicles to push the uptake of the technology. Interestingly, Transport for London has just committed the equivalent of 31 million Australian dollars for actually implementing something. Many more rapid charge points that power vehicles in 30 minutes. But in Australia, there is a new body, the Electric Vehicle Council, including some car manufacturers and other stakeholders. Land Rover Jaguar is one of the participants, and they have just shown the world their I-Pace all-electric concept vehicle. You'll have to get us out of the 5-litre supercharged V8 XJ Autobiography, but we are prepared to give it a go.